Hey everyone, so today I want to go over a mini lesson with you that you're going to be taking notes on. So today our mini lesson is on types of clauses. And the essential question is, what is a clause? What types are there? And how can I combine them to make meaning? So if I were you, I would pause right here in order to write this information down. So a clause is a group of words that has a topic and a comment. So this relates to our previous mini lesson about simple sentences. The most basic form of an independent clause is a simple sentence, okay? So a clause has a topic and it has a comment. There are two types. One is an independent or main clause, and the other one is a dependent or supporting clause. And so I'll go over the difference between both of these here in the next slide. So for independent clauses, it is a group of words with a topic and a comment that expresses a complete thought. These are clauses that can stand on their own. They're independent. They don't need anything else to help it be a complete thought. Okay, so for example, animals should definitely not wear clothing. Okay, that is, by the way, the book that we're going to be analyzing as a mentor text. So if I'm looking at this, the topic of this clause is animals. It's what the whole clause is about. And then the comment of the clause is should definitely not wear clothing. Okay, it's telling you more information about the topic of the sentence, which is animals. This can stand on its own. It's complete thought. There's nothing in here that makes it dependent on something else or rely on something else in order to make sense or have meaning. So, like I said, it stands on its own. It expresses a complete thought. This is also considered a simple sentence. So you can sort of check out, like, if it has everything that it needs for a simple sentence and can stand on its own, that's the same thing as it being an independent or main clause. So dependent clauses. A dependent clause does also have a topic and comment, but it doesn't communicate a complete thought. It can't stand on its own. So for this reason, it has to be attached to an independent clause. So often a dependent clause will start with a word that connects them to an independent clause. So if we look at this right here, animals should definitely not wear clothing because it would be disastrous for a porcupine. The word because connects the rest of the clause to the main clause. So it right here, that is considered the topic of this clause because it is referring to the situation in the main clause that animals should not wear clothing. Okay, because if animals wore clothing, it would be disastrous for a porcupine. So it represents the topic of this clause. And then would be disastrous for a porcupine, that is the comment of the clause. It's commenting on what it would be. So why animals should not wear clothing would be disastrous for a porcupine. Okay, so everything in purple is telling you and commenting on it. So I also want to point out that everything in the box right here is the dependent clause. So the word because causes it to be a dependent clause. Because if I just said because it would be disastrous for a porcupine, you wouldn't know what I was talking about. It's not a complete thought. The only way to make it complete is to have the main clause. So the word because at the start of this clause turns it from something that could stand on its own to something that is dependent on another clause, that it relies on another clause for information. Okay, so why are these clauses also called main and supporting clauses? So let's take the previous example. Animals should definitely not wear clothing because it would be disastrous for a porcupine. This independent clause is the main clause. It's what really the whole sentence is about. And then the idea in the second clause is just supporting it. So without the first clause, there would be no complete thought. In the green, it is dependent because it supports and gives more meaning to the information in the main clause. So you don't need this information for the sentence to be complete, but it is telling you why something in the main clause is happening. And then you'll just answer these notes in your questions.